Okay, hi. Good afternoon. Very hot afternoon outside, and good to see some new faces. We're on the last piece of this particular series that I've been doing on personal transformation. So today we will be speaking about the idea of what projection means, psychological projections, and how do we look at retracting them. So the entire theme of this series so far has been to explore various ways in which inner transformation, inner journeys can happen. And of course, there is really no end to how many ways in which we can transform themselves. It is always a continuous process for each one of us. It's just that I'm looking at ending this exploration for now here, and possibly we'll come back to it at some point in time. So along the way, in the last 9 talks on this, in this series, we've looked at various tools, techniques, processes through which we can facilitate transformation for ourselves on our own. So you may in some ways call them healing techniques, they are inner processes, they are reflective methods, which put together can in a way work on healing our relationships. It can shift our perspectives on life, overall make us healthier emotionally and psychologically. Right. So in the spirit of this series, today we will be speaking about yet another very potent tool of transformation, which is projection. And the transformational aspect of it is when we identify and retract, take back our projections onto the world. So to start with, what do we mean by projection? The English term projection has various meanings, including projection, for example, from the laptop onto the screen. That's also a kind of projection. But what we mean here by psychological projection is that we project the idea of something which could be a part of our fantasy, our emotion, our fear, our qualities. We project that out into the world, and this projection could happen into a particular person, it could happen to an object, a concept, and so on. It could basically, it's something that I don't want to own for whatever reason. It belongs to me really, but I don't want to own it, and therefore I attribute it, I project it out to something or someone in the world. That is what we mean by projection. So Sigmund Freud, the psychoanalyst, was the first one to talk of the theoretical idea of projection. He called it a defense mechanism. And why a defense mechanism? Because Freud believed that when we get uncomfortable with certain aspects of us, some qualities or attributes of ourselves, which we think are too scary to handle sometimes. Like I may, for example, have such a huge capacity for violence that I get scared of what I might do to myself or to the world. Or sometimes it may be too positive for me to handle. If I believe that I have a quality that is so, what I believe is excessively good, that I can't handle it, I try and project it out onto somebody else and say, no, this is not me, this is that person. Right? So that's the idea of projection. It comes from a space of wanting to defend oneself against one's own qualities, attributes, emotions, fantasies, and so on. Right? So various things like these can be projected. And why are they projected? Because I believe that I cannot accept it as something, as it being something of my own. Right? So it could be my thought, my motivation, my desire, my feeling. Any of this could be projected onto the world. Right? So that's the idea of projection. It's purely a psychological concept that we're talking about here. And very often, projections happen unconsciously. It's really rare to project consciously. So what do we mean by unconscious projection? Is that we are not aware of the fact that we are projecting something out onto somebody else. For example, if let's say I adore a certain film star, okay, I believe that this particular film star, let's say I believe Tom Cruise is the greatest actor ever, and that he's a hero and he's heroic and he does great things and all of that, right? And I adore him to the point of almost worship, right? And if I have to bring an example closer to home, we look at the film industry down in the south of India, and we'll very literally see temples constructed to honor movie stars, right? There are temples apparently dedicated to a Rajnikant or to some other movie stars in the south. Now, that's classical projection, right? Where I'm too scared to accept the heroic qualities in me, qualities that make me great, that make me the savior of the world, right? And because I'm too scared to accept that in me, because if I accept it, it means that acceptance of a good quality also comes with the responsibility of using it, and that can be scary. So therefore, instead of accepting that myself, I project it out onto a convenient human or an object that is available outside of me, in this case, a film star. Okay? So that's the idea of projection, and sometimes in cases like movie stars or politicians for that matter, there is often a collective projection. Right? So, and collective, again, unconscious projection, which means I'm not aware of the fact that I am giving away my sense of heroism to this person. Or for that matter, I'm giving away my ability for corruption to a certain politician. Right? I'm not consciously aware of it, but I am still doing it and saying that, okay, I'm not corrupt, but politicians are. Right? Or I'm not heroing, but movie stars are. Right? So it's a way of distancing myself from things in me that I either don't like or I believe I cannot handle. Right? It's too scary for me to deal with. And therefore, there is projection. And a lot of times, as I said, there are collective projections that happen unconsciously, which means an entire mass of people unconsciously projects certain attributes to certain kinds of people or concepts or objects sometimes. Right? So people we've spoken about, like film stars, politicians, are often the object of projection. If you look at objects or things, something like a Taj Mahal, right? Taj Mahal as a symbol of love. Right? If you have to look at Taj Mahal purely as an object, it's a building, right? It's constructed with marble and whatever other construction material, and it's located in a certain place, and that's that. If we have to look at it very objectively, there is nothing more to Taj Mahal. But there is, because there is a story of the origins of Taj Mahal, there is a collective projection of saying Taj Mahal stands for love, it is a romantic place, and therefore, because of that collective projection, we see action around the Taj Mahal which is suited to that projection, which means people come there for their honeymoon. A lot of people aspire to go to the Taj Mahal because it's a romantic place to be with. Right? That's collective projection on an object. There could similarly be collective projection on an idea. Personally, my opinion would be our idea of God is a collective projection. We believe collectively that there is some entity which is super powerful, which has in many ways created us. It's responsible for the life force that we cannot quite see or touch or figure out what it is tangibly, but we know it exists because we breathe, we live, we die. So there is obviously a life force, and we try and project into this life force in a collective way, and around which we've managed to formulate the concept of God. And of course, because there's a concept of God around it, we've also formulated other things like religion and rituals and so on. Right? So the idea of God in itself is very possibly a collective projection, where we've invested our power into that entity that we consider is God, regardless of whatever name we call it. So, how does projection happen on a day-to-day basis for you and me on a regular basis? While of course at one level we all participate in collective projection, we also participate very much in individual projection. We are constantly projecting on people and things and spaces around us. So what kind of projections do we often engage in? Here are a few random examples. One very common example of projection is demonstrated through the idea of blaming a victim. One very common example we see in Indian media, for example, is the idea of the rape victim being the wrong person because she exposed herself, she was wearing the wrong clothes, she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay? And the victim is blamed. And how is that a projection? It's a projection because somewhere, as a bystander, as somebody who could not do anything about the rape that has happened, I'm trying not to feel guilty, right? Because I couldn't protect this person. What is it that I can do to not own up my guilt? Because that guilt is very uncomfortable to live with. I'd rather project that guilt onto the victim and say, I'm not guilty, you are, because you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Right? And that could happen to various kinds of victims. It could be rape victims. A lot of times you hear parents telling children, you should have not run there, otherwise you wouldn't have fallen, or you wouldn't have injured yourself, right? Again, the child is the victim of the injury, but then the child is blamed because the child happened to be running or playing or whatever is it that he or she was doing, right? Because I don't want to own that guilt. I couldn't prevent that injury. I'd rather, in a way, outsource that guilt. And that outsourcing mechanism is the projection. So that's one way in which we project out into the world. Another common way, bullying. If you look at, and of course it happens to adults as well, but it's very prevalent among children more often than in adults. Bullying happens because somewhere I'm afraid of my own vulnerability, and therefore when I see somebody around me being vulnerable, I'd rather torture that person and make sure that that vulnerability is dealt with in that person rather than being dealt with in me. And it's interesting that a lot of people who bully, right, not the victims, the perpetrators, a lot of students who bully, even adults who bully others, psychological studies suggest that a lot of them have been bullied. They have been in that vulnerable space, or a lot of times, even as they are bullying others, in some other spaces they are actually being bullied. And therefore, they try and, in a way, project that anger, that vulnerability onto somebody else. So bullying is another way in which projection can happen. Projection of guilt through blame, again, as I said, it's very similar to blaming the victim, because I don't want to own the guilt. I'd rather blame somebody else and say something's not working. Yeah, and a very simple example of it would be to say, oh, I came late to the meeting because there's so much traffic in Bombay and the municipality cannot handle it and the roads are bad and right? So I'm blaming everybody else in the process, which could include the road authorities, the transport authorities, other drivers on the road, and so on, because I don't want to own the guilt of the fact that I am late. Okay? So I try and project that onto everybody else that I can find. Sometimes there could also be positive projection, right? Projection of hope, okay? Which is something that all of us have perhaps experienced when we really, really hope that India wins a match, a cricket match. Right? That there is a projection of hope. We want to experience victory. We want that sense of thrill, that exhilaration. And because we're not playing, and there isn't perhaps as much glamour and as much excitement in our personal lives, there is that projection of hope onto that team which has the experience of that glamour and that excitement. Right? And in the process, the team takes in that energy, of course, unconsciously, and then it does what it does with it. Collective projections, as I said, it could be on political figures, it could be on movie stars, like hero worship. That's again an example of collective projection. There's been a lot of talk in the last couple of years around the whole, if I may call it, the idea of Donald Trump, not just Trump the person, but what Trump stands for. and what is being projected onto him. Everything that we seem to dislike, everything that we think is unpalatable, disgusting, right, is getting projected onto this one particular person who's standing up there as a world leader. And we are working it out through him because he's up there, he's absorbing all of that projection, he's acting it out, and then we have to come back and deal with whatever is the repercussion, the consequence of that. Similar, a closer to home example of that would be the projection that's happening on our Prime Minister, Modi. That there is, again, a lot being projected in terms of what Modi stands for and what is it that we like about ourselves that we are projecting onto him, and very importantly, what do we not like about ourselves that we are collectively projecting onto him. So, while collective shadows, and when I say shadows, I mean parts of our personality that we don't accept, things that are in the dark. Right? A personality consists of both the light and the shadow. Light in the sense of things about ourselves that we accept, and there are things that we suppress because we don't want to deal with it for various reasons. So collective shadows, of course, take a while to process because it's a huge mass of people that needs to work its way around. But we can always be aware of what our individual projections are, what kind of tendencies do we tend to project, and we can always try and work through that. So what are the various kinds of things we project onto any object or person of projection? We can project, as we said, emotions, experiences. Okay? There are times, for example, we might have experienced ourselves doing this. We are very angry and walk into a meeting with somebody, and at some point in the time we hear ourselves saying, don't talk in that tone, you're being too angry, right? Whereas the anger is actually ours. We're just trying to project it onto somebody else and say, why are you angry? Or why are you sad? Why are you looking so happy? Right? It's actually our anger or our happiness that we're trying to not manage, and therefore we're attributing it to the other person. A lot of times when we try and seek advice from a person to an extent that we are absolutely dependent on that person, right? We say that, no, I don't know so much about life. You tell me what to do and I'll work according to whatever you say, right? You make decisions for me. In that case, we are projecting our own wisdom, our own experience onto somebody else and saying, I know nothing about this. You know better, and you have to take the responsibility for decisions in my life. That's again a way of projecting. We're not wanting to take responsibility for our own decisions, and therefore a convenient way of not taking responsibility is to project our wisdom onto somebody else. A lot of times we project our fears. How many times do we hear parents, for example, tell children, right, don't go out after a certain point in time, you'll get kidnapped, you'll get you'll get taken away by somebody, or someone will give you a candy and lure you away. All kinds of fears that get projected onto children. And children, unfortunately, introject a lot of this. Right? So projection is when I project out, I put out something that I don't want to own. Introjection is the receiver's response, right? So I project something onto you, and sometimes unconsciously you may end up receiving what I project. Right? So if I tell you don't go out after 6 p.m. because you'll end up getting kidnapped, you as a child specifically might introject that fear and say, oh, okay, I must be fearful because there is a possibility that I can get kidnapped. Right? And the fear keeps building up into the child the more I project that fear. As a baby doesn't really come with any fears. The baby is a blank slate. Fear is taught, right? And how is fear taught? Fear is taught through projection. Right? I don't want to deal with it myself, so I tell you that this belongs to you now. Now you stay with the fear. That's typically the mechanism with which we deal with it. as I said earlier, hope or prayer is often projected onto people or things. Like hope very often is projected onto sports teams. Prayers projected onto temples, onto people. Like all the Baba scandals that we hear around India is a very classic case of prayers getting projected onto somebody who couldn't handle it. In some ways, projecting a prayer onto perhaps a temple or a stone idol is safer, in the sense at least the idol can't act, right? At least can't physically act around it. When we project it onto a person, the way we've done with multiple of these Babas that we hear about, we projected, they introjected, which means they took in what we told them they were, that they were these great people, they had powers to heal, they have powers to cause miracles, and so on. But when you introject more than you can handle, which means, so there is a part of you that's unconsciously taking in the message that's coming from the world. But if I'm not actually capable of executing whatever is it that you're sending to me as a prayer, as an expectation, then at some point my psyche is going to act up and act on the projection, but that acting on the projection may come from a space which is not balanced at all. And therefore that acting on happens in the form of abuse, it happens in the form of corruption, it happens in ways which are extremely unpleasant. So the case of what's the messenger of God guy, what's his name, Ram Rahim, yeah. Yeah, a lot of projection, because he's constantly being told by his followers that you're powerful, you can do anything, you can get away with everything, you are God, and all of that. In the process, there is a part of him that's unconsciously believed I am God, and therefore also believes I will get away with anything that I will do in the name of God, right? And therefore he thought he could get away with rape, with murder, with all other activities that he's getting accused of. Right? That's a case of projection collective projection that's gone bad. We project our spirituality, as I said, very often through our prayers, through various other means. A lot of times we project our concern. Right? A lot of times the concern may be for our own inability, our own incompetency, and we might project it out onto our colleagues, onto our family members, to our friends, and say, are you sure you will be able to do this? Right? A very typical projection of, a stereotypical projection of concern that I hear often is women saying, oh, I can't leave my child and go on a holiday because the child doesn't know how to manage homework, how to manage food, and a lot of times this child could be a very grown-up child. It doesn't necessarily have to be a very dependent young one. Right? A lot of times that concern is about, will that child, the concern which is stated as saying the child can't do without me, is not so much about the child can't do without you, it's about the fact that I'll miss the child. Right? The concern is for myself and not so much for the other person, but it's projected onto the other person, and then it comes, and then the equation of dependency is, or the illusion of dependency is created. Similarly, we can project our apprehensions, our fears, will I be able to do it, will I not be able to do it, and that nervousness is spread out amongst teams, amongst family members. And a lot of times, of course, we also project our fantasies, things that we really would want to do, our desires that we possibly believe we cannot achieve for whatever reason, which could be, fantasies could be around money, around travel, a lot of times fantasies around sexuality, which get projected onto someone else, and the hope is that somebody else lives it out for you. Again, a typical example of projection of fantasy would be about parents saying that, oh, I couldn't become a doctor, so I will make sure that you become one. The fantasy of becoming the doctor is projected onto the child. Sometimes the child takes it up, sometimes it doesn't quite work very well. So all of us project all the time. Now, why is this a transformation tool? Why are we speaking about this in this particular series? Is because of this, the danger of this, the danger of counter projection. All projections provoke counter projection when the object is unconscious of the quality being projected upon it. So, I project something onto you, for example. Okay? I project, let's say, a fear or a fantasy, something that I project onto you. And obviously, because in most cases it's an unconscious process, I don't intend to do it, you don't intend to receive it, but we end up doing it. I project something and he unconsciously introjects, he receives the projection, and at some level he starts believing that that projection is true. So if I am in a very close relationship with him and I constantly project onto him that, you are great, you can do absolutely anything, you're such a great manager of, let's say, money, and therefore you know how to take risks in the market, you know how to do exactly the right thing in the right time. And if I keep projecting this onto him, at some level he might introject unconsciously to an extent where if the amount of introjection exceeds his capability, at some day he is bound to go and take an excessive risk out in the market and lose everything, right? There's a counter projection. He's acting on my projection, believing that he is really capable, but he may perhaps not be capable of it. He may perhaps lack the technical skills needed to act on that projection, but he's counter projecting unwillingly, and in the process there's damage that is caused. Okay. So that's counter projection, and that can be extremely dangerous for people around us, and of course for us as well along the way, because we are, as much as we project out into the world, remember that we are also the object of projection for our families, for our friends, for whoever else in our circle is close to us and projects things on us. So therefore projection becomes important to handle consciously, because that's where it becomes transformational. That's where once we start managing projections as an object or as a subject, both ways, when we start managing it consciously, is when we can actually sit back and say, okay, these are parts of me, these are qualities about me that really belong to me, this is me. There are these other things which people say about me is not really me, right? There are these other emotions which people believe I have, but they're not really mine, that they belong to somebody else. Maybe they belong to my parents, maybe they belong to my spouse or children or anybody else, and they're not mine. And it's important to separate that and say, no, that's not my reality, let me not claim that. And let me live with what's my capacity, what's really my emotion, my experience, my capability, and work through that. So it becomes important to own up projections and retract ones that we've put onto others, and also put out projections from our own selves which we've taken in from others, and that allows us to become more authentic, to become more real and function as who we really are, not what the world thinks we are. Because in functioning as an object of projection, which means in functioning as somebody that my parent thinks I am or my spouse thinks I am, I'm not being real. I'm fighting to be someone, fighting to act on something which I perhaps don't even want to act on, but I'm expected unconsciously to work on something like that. And that's a huge struggle, and that causes massive internal conflict which a lot of times we cannot even define. So therefore it becomes critical to understand the concept of projection in the first place, and then start slowly becoming aware of, are we projecting, are we not, are we introjecting, are we not, and where is the real me in all of this. So we end with talking about how do we retract projections. There are various ways to work through it. The simplest, in the sense, the most accessible way to work through this is what's listed at the bottom, the idea of self-awareness. Now that we know what projection means, what can we do to be aware of my own projection to start with, and also my introjections, things that I seem to be taking on when others tell me about it, which could sometimes be very, sometimes it's very tempting to introject something which sounds very positive. You know, when somebody comes and tells me, oh, you're such a great person, or you're so good at something like this, or you're so compassionate, or you're so whatever, it sounds nice, and I would want to be that, and therefore I would want to introject that, but does it really belong to me is a question that only I can answer. Okay? And of course, most of these questions don't really have a yes or no answer, in the sense of I can't really say, okay, I'm 80% compassionate and there's 20% to go. There are parts of me which probably are, parts of me which are not, but then I need to be aware of how much of that is coming from others, how much is it really mine. Okay? When we get more and more into the idea of self-awareness in terms of asking ourselves constantly, am I projecting, am I introjecting? A lot of times I find that the body becomes a good friend in the process. The body starts telling us when we are either projecting or we are introjecting. Particularly when we are introjecting, the body is very alert and aware of the fact that there's something foreign that's entering. Right? As an emotion, as an attribute, there's something that doesn't belong here which is entering this energy space, and the body can give us signals if we are really tuned in and start connecting with the body. So, and it doesn't really have to be a long process of body work. Even if you do anything which connects you to your body, which could be meditation, it could be walks, exercise, dance, anything that you do as a matter of daily routine for somatic connection, for body connection, can help you to become more self-aware in this area. The other ways in which we can look at retracting projections are, one is working with our parts, right? A couple of years ago I had done this entire series on internal family systems, where we look at parts work. There are different parts that each of us hold within our own personality, and each of these parts, sometimes because they feel incomplete, they tend to project things onto the world on behalf of us. So the more we integrate parts within us, projections tend to reduce, because we've integrated parts of us that we earlier did not accept. So parts work is a beautiful way of dealing with that, and you will find a lot of material around parts work even online. If you look for internal family systems, you'll find books, you'll find videos online around that. Another very powerful way of working with projections is doing shadow work. Right? Shadow, we spoke earlier about how there's the persona and the shadow, the light and the dark parts of ourselves. And the persona, the lighter part of ourselves, the part that's in the light, is the parts of us that we accept. The shadow is the suppressed part. Right? So, for example, when we speak of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde as classic characters, right? Jekyll is in the light, it's the persona. Hyde is the shadow, the part of himself that he doesn't accept. Right? Because there is so much projection about Dr. Jekyll being this good doctor, this great Samaritan who's always generous, who's always correct, doing the right thing, moralistic and all of that, at some point he introjects all the good things that are being spoken about him, but then obviously there are parts of him that are also capable of evil, which he's unable to accept because there's so much good projection happening. And in the process, there is that Mr. Hyde who comes out at night and kills people. Right? That's the shadow. So there are various ways to do shadow work. There are a lot of process-based methods. You'll also again find a lot of material online. If you want to work through that, you will find videos and books around the concept of shadow, and you can use that to work through projections as well. And of course, maintaining a growth mindset, that is always helpful. So when I say growth mindset here, I'm distinguishing that as against a fixed mindset. So when we say fixed mindset, we believe that this is who I am and this is how the world has to deal with me. There's nothing that can be done about me or the world. Right? And then there is rigidity in our transactions. Then there's very little that we can do to shift or transform ourselves or circumstances around us. But the idea of growth mindset is to say, I am constantly evolving, as is the world around me. And therefore, it's possible that as I accept more and more of my projections, as I retract them from the people that I have invested it in, it's possible that I will evolve. A lot of times that process of growth may not be pleasant, in the sense I will have to accept parts of me which are not so nice, right? Sometimes I will have to accept the fact that the cruelty, for example, which I have projected onto somebody else in my life could actually be my cruelty, which I don't want to deal with. Right? So the growth mindset is challenging. It calls for a lot of courage to accept parts of us that we otherwise wouldn't want to accept, but it does certainly facilitate growth and, very importantly, freedom from our own projections and our own limitations. So those are some of the many tools that we can use to retract projections. My recommendation, of course, would be to, start here, start at self-awareness. That's where we start realizing the power of projection, the power that we're giving away out to the world, and slowly start claiming that back, and in the process also give away the introjections that we've taken on from our families, our friends around us. So that's what I had to share today. One book that I would recommend if you're interested in the idea of projections is this one by Robert Johnson. It's called Inner Gold, where he speaks about understanding the idea of projection, and also speaks about ways in which we can retract, take back projections from the world. So it's a beautiful book in this area. So that's that from me.
Thank you.
Thank you.